Now, the reason I think it's really important to do this kind of thing is because, not only because, well, two things actually. Why, unlike what, generates ideas. If you ask, you can answer lots and lots and lots of what questions, you can compile a lot of statistics, you can get a lot of factual information. Generally, there are exceptions, and brilliant statisticians can do this, but mostly it doesn't generate the kind of insights that really generate interesting and new ideas. Okay? On the other hand, if you come up with an interesting why, you're probably 75% there. It's a wonderful thing that if you can actually reframe the question, if you can ask a different question or come up with a different explanation, the likelihood that it generates a creative solution which mostly will work but certainly will be worth testing is just inordinately higher. Why is inordinately more valuable than what? And yet businesses spend 90% of their time effectively asking a what. And the reason it matters so much is because if you get the why wrong through a lazy assumption, it leads to a huge amount of misdirected effort. So I'll give you an example of this, which I think has been wonderfully corrected, but it took more or less a lifetime of work, by a man called Dr. David Metz, who is the Chief Scientific Officer for the UK Department of Transport. Every single transport measure was based on an assumption, which is, why do people want faster forms of transport? And in every case, for decade after decade, the assumption was to save time. The models that actually justified transport investment were effectively predicated on the fact that anybody in transit was economically useless, economically inert, and therefore the more time they had to do things which weren't travelling, the greater the economic and value they would enjoy. And Metz spent years looking at what people actually did when they got access to faster transport. He discovered something very strange, which is hugely important, because the whole of transport policy changes once you understand this, which is basically whatever forms of transportation you give people. And this pretty much goes back to the Roman era. Other than people, obviously, who are professional drivers or who have very unusual circumstances, most people are pretty happy to spend a 1 hour to maybe 70 minutes a day pootling about the place, okay? And if you give them new forms of transportation that are faster, they do not use it to save time, they use it to travel further afield. They use it to maximize opportunity, to maximize the places they can go, the places they can work, the places they can live, okay? And so this interesting kind of ceiling in what is natural human behavior, which is really something, essentially innate and evolved,